Thank you for joining me to discuss cloud data management for SOLIDWORKS users via Dassault Systèmes 3DEXPERIENCE platform. Today, I'm going to show you how to get started very quickly with tools that allow a team in different locations to collaborate on and manage designs without disconnected workflows or even IT overhead. I'll do this using a dataset from a real-world SOLIDWORKS and 3DEXPERIENCE customer called Square Robot. This is a company who builds robots that perform safety inspections on tanks holding hazardous materials. Their first submersible hovering robot was created back in May of 2019 and used by Phillips 66 to inspect diesel storage tanks without having to take them out of service or put a human in harm's way. Now they provide this service for a range of commercial and military customers, and the development all started with SOLIDWORKS. So the first thing I want to show you is simply how we can connect SOLIDWORKS to the cloud. This step securely centralizes our data so that we can work as a team without wondering who is working on what or if we have the correct file open. Once connected, there are a variety of cloud tools we can utilize, and I'll focus on a few that should interest the project managers out there. After that, I want to show you what a potential workflow could look like for a team collaboration, and I'll be changing hats and going through the interaction of a project manager as well as two different SOLIDWORKS designers, so stick with me for that. Let's start off in SOLIDWORKS though and get some existing designs up to the cloud. The 3DEXPERIENCE add-in simply runs in the task pane on the right side of SOLIDWORKS. If you've ever seen traditional SOLIDWORKS PDM or product data management, it runs in the same place. Even if you haven't, this is just another tree structure providing feedback on the status of open files. For instance, I can see from the tooltip next to my mouse that several of these files need to be uploaded to the cloud for the very first time. Now, if you're an existing SOLIDWORKS user, you can probably guess what I need to do here. Just right-click the file to find the save command I'm looking for. So it's right-click over here in the task pane of SOLIDWORKS. It's not the save button at the top that you're used to saving with locally. Not all these parts are new. In fact, some are existing hardware that are already in my cloud library and are even released files not editable by me. The 3DEXPERIENCE add-in recognizes this and will upload only the data that is out of sync, thus eliminating unwanted duplicates or accidental overwrites and cutting down on network traffic. And I personally like my setup to copy all files to a single working directory or cache. Files are always cached locally, so you get that quick local performance, but having them in one local spot, although optional, helps me manage file names and clear disk space whenever I want to. Now, depending on your options, the files can be copied over, uploaded to the cloud, organized into folders, and have derived formats like PDF and STEP generated all in one operation. After uploading, the SOLIDWORKS task pane again provides the feedback that all files are backed up and what their maturity state is, such as in work versus released. But you don't need to open up all your old projects just to upload them. There is a bulk uploader, which can be used to migrate existing data up to the platform, found under the Tools drop-down menu. Here I can choose entire folders to upload and select which collaborative space on my platform they'll go into. And a collaborative space is just that, a space where my files go, and I have control over access rights, permissions, and visibility. There are options for dealing with external file reference and duplicates, but we get to sit back and let SOLIDWORKS automate the data management job for us. Once everything is done processing, you've moved from the world of Windows folders to a cloud database. One of the big advantages of this is incredible search capabilities, something I seldom make use of in Windows. Here I'm repeating a search from my recent history using just part of the numbers in a file name. This searches my entire database, and simply dragging and dropping the file into SOLIDWORKS either downloads it from the cloud or retrieves it from my local cache if I already had it around. In order to give myself write access to the file, I'm simply going to right-click it and reserve it. This provides visibility on who is currently working with what files and prevents anyone else from modifying the file at the same time. What I need to do today is bring in these wheel rollers I had up earlier. And before saving back to the cloud, I should probably check out where this assembly is used and what all could be affected by this change. A toolbar at the bottom of the task pane gives me access to the file's relationships. This provides an expandable graphical view of all the parent-child dependencies, so you really get where used and contains info right in one spot. In this case, there's a top-level assembly, and if I use the open button this time, instead of dragging and dropping, I'll get the assembly opening modes, so I can go straight to a large design review and just look around. Or here, I'm going to pick lightweight. Choosing lightweight means SOLIDWORKS doesn't have to download every part in the assembly, which can be a big time saver if you don't have the files locally cached and you're not in a spot with fast internet. Now I'm going to reserve just the top level assembly and choose to cloud save. And I want you to notice that SOLIDWORKS is keeping track of which parts have changed and which ones are already in their latest version and up to date. If I modified files without reserving them first, SOLIDWORKS notifies me and prevents me from overwriting someone else's work. Now for this lid itself, I'm going to choose to make a completely new revision, and I'll release all of my file reservations after save so that others could take write access and work with them. And despite the size of this file, the cloud save time is pretty good because only the models that have changed need to be uploaded. And because the files are cached locally, I don't have to worry about any inconsistent internet speeds or network drive connections ruining my productivity. With very few exceptions, almost everything I've just shown you is out-of-the-box functionality. While MLC is absolutely here to help you customize and implement this new technology at your company, all you need to do is install the add-in to get started with this workflow I've just shown you. So that's all it takes to connect your data to the cloud. You hit save in the task pane or bulk upload your existing designs, and now your data is securely stored in a central location that your team can access from anywhere. They call this a single source of truth in marketing speak, and beyond eliminating file management problems, it opens up some additional connected tool sets. Perhaps you use SOLIDWORKS on a desktop machine, or you're like me and you bought a laptop but it weighs 27 pounds and you never really want to take it anywhere. Well, there are actually a lot of tasks I do that don't require all that much horsepower, and 3DEXPERIENCE provides a number of cloud tools that can be accessed through any device with a web browser. So let's swap over to a browser. These 3DEXPERIENCE apps are all accessible from inside of the task pane of SOLIDWORKS, but the web interface means I can take my work just about anywhere. For instance, when I'm cataloging part libraries and just organizing projects and tasks, I don't really need to be in my office. I could absolutely take care of these things from the local brewery, and the apps can be arranged and organized into tabs on what's called a dashboard. I need to do some bill of materials work, so I'm going to get into Product Structure Explorer. This app provides a graphical view and a list view at the same time that can be filtered and customized by column. I simply want to locate the newly added roller assembly within the structure in order to attach a supporting document. With Microsoft Office integration included, any document can be managed with the same control policies as CAD data, so I can link this assembly and PDF together. Now in the top left corner, I've got the compass, which is kind of like the start menu on your computer. It gives you access to all the different apps. What I'd like to do is update a colleague of mine on the progress, but they're kind of new to 3DEXPERIENCE and they don't know all the tools yet. So instead of teaching them, I'm going to drag out and position the apps on a tab of the dashboard that I'll name Viewing. Then I can share this layout and I know they will have exactly the information I want them to have in the desired layout. Now one thing I know I want them to see is 3D Play, the file viewer. So I've got it loaded up with the top level assembly. And while I was here, I just went ahead and grabbed a screenshot to maybe post into a community. Next, I want to get into the bookmark editor, which provides a folder-like experience, not unlike Windows Explorer. Now these folders just point to the files instead of containing them, but it's a very familiar and convenient interface to get into. I actually use the bookmarks editor heavily for bill of materials work too. You can customize the columns, show thumbnails, templatize project folder structures, and what's nice is it cross-highlights with 3D Play. So I think my coworker is probably going to understand the layout of this just intuitively, and then all I need to do is copy a link of this dashboard to share it with them. Instead of going back to email, actually, I'm going to make use of some of the communication tools here and open up communities. Here I can make a post and paste in that link to the customized dashboard and maybe throw in that screenshot I took as well. This way, everything is linking back to the actual project data. The communication history is all here in one spot as well, and so this kind of connection means I never have to worry about not seeing the latest info. So in addition to connecting SOLIDWORKS to the cloud, I actually started using just a couple of the tools that are available to all SOLIDWORKS and 3DEXPERIENCE users. Since my SOLIDWORKS files are now on my platform, I'm tempted to take them into simulation or maybe some other design tools, but staying on task here, I'm going to look at them from the perspective of a project manager. And in that respect, a project manager may not even have SOLIDWORKS installed at all and can make greater use of these cloud apps. So I'm going to change hats here and switch over to a web browser where I'm logged in as a manager and no longer as an engineer. Looking at communities, I can see the post that we just made as an engineer, the screenshot is there, and the link to show me that pre-configured layout. Adding this layout to my dashboard, I can see the project folder structure and the 3D Play viewer that's connected to the actual assembly in its latest release. No emails, no attachments, no searching, no out-of-date info. Fully interactive viewing of 3D models works even well on touchscreens, so there's no special hardware required here. It's all being processed in the cloud and the web browser. You don't even need a CAD license, just your login to the platform. Now there are some fundamental tools here that you'd expect, like the ability to measure, markup, take some screenshots, view where used and contains information. And after I get the units right here, the 25-inch radius looks good, but I'm concerned there's going to be some twisting in these roller arms that we added unless there's a support in between them, ties them together. One potential way any member of any team could raise red flags is through the use of issues. This is just one of the built-in Inovia PLM tools available for tracking problems and controlling changes. Now, since I'm a manager right now, I'm going to create the issue and immediately take action on it by assigning it to an engineer who will receive a notification through the platform. Again, there's no need for an email or a phone call, and all the information about the issue and what files are affected is included. Many times, issues originate with a red line or a markup too. So I'm going to take care of that with the 3D Markup app. It's essentially just an extension of that file viewer. This adds quite a bit of clarity and remains as a live 3D view as opposed to taking screenshots. Here you could create multiple views and add various annotations right on the 3D model. This markup is automatically attached to the issue report, and since my engineer was assigned the issue, they'll receive a notification through their browser letting them know they have a new task with all of the relevant 3D markup and information included. Let me show you what those tasks look like by just taking a look at the Collaborative Tasks app. This is a very simple project management tool for task tracking. And so additionally here, I'm going to create a new task and assign it to another engineer who would be responsible for creating a hardware kit and a drawing for that wheel roller assembly. This one task contains all the information needed to get the work done, so the engineer doesn't need to spend time searching for files or getting organized. And again, they can just open this task from right inside of SOLIDWORKS, and as a manager, I can just come back to the web browser and track the overall progress of the task. I want to point out too that this is just a small subset of the apps provided to all SOLIDWORKS 3DEXPERIENCE users. I've used bookmarks to organize data, 3D Play to review and mark up files, and issues and tasks for project management. But there are even more formal tools for controlling the change and release of data that you can get into without any additional licensing. What I'm trying to show here today requires no custom configuration and are tools that I think are going to be easiest to get into on day one. So you've just seen me work as an engineer and a manager, but in reality, this work is happening concurrently, and 3DEXPERIENCE facilitates the data management so we don't have to worry about who has write access to a file or if we're working with the latest version. In order to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you a bit of over-the-shoulder watching for 3 members of a remote team. What I've got is 2 engineers and 1 manager, all working at the same time from different parts of the world and using different computer hardware. Dropping in on the first engineer, I see she has the collaborative task app running inside of her SOLIDWORKS task pane. She would have been automatically notified here, or on the website, or even pushed via email that a task was assigned to her, and she just needs to drag and drop it from to do to in work to give the entire team visibility that she's on the job. And notice the related CAD model is already on the task for her. She just needs to drag and drop or right click and open to get started in SOLIDWORKS. Now all of these changes in this task are at the top level, so she needs to reserve the top level assembly so that only she has right access to it. And the first part of the job here is to create a hardware kit for this roller assembly. Now you can use any hardware you want, any library of files with 3DEXPERIENCE, just like you always could with SOLIDWORKS. But in this case, she's using the SOLIDWORKS Toolbox, which comes in SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium. If you use Toolbox already, there's no change to the way it operates. You can pull from the standard libraries and folders. You can add your own custom hardware. You still get to drag and drop. You get auto sizing. You get smart mates. All of your parts list or bill of material information to go along with these. In this case, a component pattern is needed here to populate the hardware to all the whole instances and finish the hardware kit. The only real difference here is that with 3DEXPERIENCE, the Toolbox library is securely stored and managed in the cloud. Any Toolbox parts are automatically set to a release state so that no one can edit them off of the standard sizing, and they're all cataloged for shared access. The second item on the task is to create a 2D drawing with a bill of materials that could be customer facing. Now while she works on that, I hope you're noticing that adding 3DEXPERIENCE to SOLIDWORKS doesn't fundamentally change the interface or any of your current workflows. It's just a more organized and powerful way to work with visibility for the entire team. So let's switch over to our second engineer who's working on the same project. He's been tasked with stabilizing those wheel rollers, and this task originated from the issue that our manager previously identified. The Issues app provides a formal way of tracking a problem from its identification all the way through its completion, and it carries that relevant info and files and markup images into task assignment. This gives the engineer everything they need to get to work. He's starting by reviewing the attached markup, any notes, clicking through the markup and the 3D geometry, and trying to find the affected subassembly. At this point, he realizes he needs to find the parent assembly because that's going to be affected by this type of issue as well. Well, the same relationships tool I used inside of SOLIDWORKS for locating where used and contains information, it's here too. So once the affected files are identified, he just could drag and drop from the web into SOLIDWORKS or simply right click and open in SOLIDWORKS. And this is where things get really interesting because this is the same assembly that our other engineer is currently working on. The SOLIDWORKS task pane once again provides the information needed. These little red padlocks tell us the file is currently reserved and who it's reserved by. Now this is different from our traditional Windows file system where if you open an assembly, it locks everyone else out of the assembly and all of the subcomponents of that assembly. Here we can work on lower level parts of an assembly even though the top level is in use and we know who it's in use by. In this case, the top level is just needed for visual reference, so it's handy to have it open and read only. Only a few subcomponents need to be reserved, and he can begin work by adding the stabilizing member. Again, he's not locked out of making changes to this subcomponent just because someone else has the top level assembly open. And that's perhaps one of the more simple and fundamental differences compared to working without a data management system. It's really there to protect you in the background. For instance, here, when the engineer tries to save the assembly, he sees that he actually modified additional subcomponents that now need to save, but he never reserved them. That's okay because no one else had them reserved, so with one click he can just reserve just those specific additional files without interrupting the workflow. In other words, you really don't have to know about all the intricacies of model dependencies. The platform is tracking that stuff for you in the background. With the save complete, we've got green checks across the board here. His computer could catch on fire and we wouldn't lose a bit of work. he can now flip back to his open web browser and mark the issue as in approval for management to review. Now, in this scenario, both of our engineers are online and working at the same time. So one engineer can simply message the other to discuss the change, talk about, a need to rebuild or what we should do from inside the same environment. And as you've seen, all of those tools are available both in the web browser and from inside of SOLIDWORKS. In this case, our engineer just needs to perform a reload from server via right-click menu on the subassembly in order to see the most recent changes. The assembly then rebuilds and is up to date, which includes the open drawing, and everything is ready for a final save to the cloud. There's no more worrying about what's the latest version of the file, where did they put it, who's working on it. The platform takes care of all of that, and we're ready to close the loop on this assigned task. Staying inside of SOLIDWORKS, but switching over to her task list, she can search up and attach the drawing as a final deliverable. And at mentioning the name of her manager in a comment will push a notification to them. But she also moves the task to complete, giving visibility to the entire team, all without leaving SOLIDWORKS, and that's the big takeaway. When SOLIDWORKS is connected to 3DEXPERIENCE, you can make much better use of your time. You no longer need to bounce in and out of SOLIDWORKS and use other disconnected, error-prone tools for project tracking, file management, and so on. Finally, let's spy on management, who is relying heavily on their notifications panel. She's got it set so that anytime there's a status change, an update, or a comment on anything she's involved with, it shows up here. Each notification is a link to the activity, so she can jump straight to the first task assigned and review those markups. What I want to show you here is the original 3D markup actually shows the latest design changes because, of course, everything is connected to the real live data. Now it's all looking good, so she's just going to mark the issue as completed. Issue management is one of the easiest tools to log the history of problem reports and change requests. Pretty much a requirement for any regulated industry, and it's ready to operate just like this out of the box. Now switching over to the dashboard tab with the bookmarks editor on it, you can see a new drawing in the project folder. Dragging and dropping that into 3D Play, it looks like something that could probably be customer facing. After a quick review, say there's no changes needed, the drawing's maturity can be changed from right inside that bookmark editor as well, releasing the drawing without the manager ever having to open it up inside of SOLIDWORKS. With the design complete and revision 8.1 is released, everything is locked down and they can begin the customer-facing approval process. I know that was a lot of back and forth between users, but that's the nature of working on a team, and I hope you're able to stick with me through the role changes. What I want to emphasize is that the tools of 3DEXPERIENCE don't hold you to a linear process. You can rearrange the workflow I've shown you today or get into more advanced tools such as change actions or routes that are also included for all SOLIDWORKS users, but I just didn't get into today. Without a data management system, we all know how difficult it can be to try and access the same data simultaneously, and this is not solved by a simple network share drive, Dropbox, or OneDrive. 3DEXPERIENCE solves this fundamental issue and provides a full suite of PLM tools without the overhead of IT infrastructure and local network hardware. And this is the fastest startup to any PDM system out there. What I've shown you today requires no customization. This was pretty much all default out-of-the-box settings. There's no need to be tied to a network by a VPN or deal with IT costs. And cloud means that you can really work from any spot with an internet connection. So as a startup company, 3DEXPERIENCE gave Square Robot the tools needed to work together at odd hours and off-site locations, but I haven't focused today on people just getting started. I'm thinking of us existing SOLIDWORKS users, and I'd like to take a minute to discuss the licensing required to take a seat of SOLIDWORKS and give it these cloud capabilities. So for you current SOLIDWORKS users out there, you're going to need three things. The first is called Collaborative Business Innovator, and this is your login to the platform. Now, 3DEXPERIENCE uses named user licensing, so it's tied to an email address and password instead of a serial number. The Collaborative Business Innovator gives you communities, the 3D Play file viewer, 5 gigs of online storage through 3D Drive, and it's going to be needed by everyone logging into 3D Experience. The real power comes in Collaborative Industry Innovator, which is where all the data management tools powered by the Innovia brand are. Anyone doing any type of file management is going to need this. And for us SOLIDWORKS users, Collaborative Designer for SOLIDWORKS is the add-in that brings it all inside of the SOLIDWORKS task pane. And that's it. From here, you could add licensing for just about any additional Dassault Systems program you want to get your hands on, including very high-end simulations, and your SOLIDWORKS files flow right into them, updates, design changes, and all. And don't forget, MLC is here to help you navigate this new landscape. While this software is pre-configured to work out of the box, we absolutely offer implementation services, including environment customizations, data migrations, and admin and end-user training. To learn more, just head over to mlc-cad.com/3DEXperience, and I sincerely thank you for your time today.